Okay, we're taking out the little wedge pin and the kingpin here. And the recessed side is where you want to start and drive it the other way. Don't try driving it the other way, you're going to be tightening it up. I modified a little chisel here to get it started. You better put your earmuffs on, because here we go. Okay, that came out real easy. It's almost all the way out. There it goes. Next step, we'll knock that freeze plug out, or that wedge plug. Okay. It's going, but it's going slow. A lot tighter than the other side. Well, I've gained about an inch. Alright, you get the idea. I'm going to keep pounding on it. Okay, 5 minutes later. Ta-da! Nothing to it. I received a package in the mail yesterday, and I'm hoping it's all my front end parts. Let's take a look. It's Christmas in March. Got my kingpin set, front axle spindle seals. I got my 3 rubber brake lines, 2 for the front, 1 for the back, thermostat. I got my rear shock links, and one of those was starting to get really loose, so I thought I'd better put those on. And my 2 upper outer control arm bushing links. And these are the ones that adjust your caster and camber. So, that's cool. Now I got to get to work. One of the first things you need to do is get those little stake marks off of the top where they had that little welch plug, a little freeze plug or expansion plug. And you can use a Dremel tool, whatever you want to use, and then you can drive out the bushing. I was able to grind out those little stake marks. So now I should be able to I just took an old socket, happens to be the right size. I'm going to drive that through. Well, after I got the bushings out, there goes my socket. Anyway, I took a brake wheel cylinder hone, and just ran it through these just to knock off any burrs or anything, so you don't have any tight spots. You don't want to take off any material. And then I just kind of got my bushing started in there, tapped it in, and I'm going to attempt to press this in with the vise. Let's see how this goes. It may not go at all, as far as I know. Looks like it's going. Appears to be going. Well, I'm going to have to put down the camera. I can't do both. Alright, we'll push that the rest of the way in. Got the bushing all the way in. Now it does have to be recessed, of course, because you got to put that little plug in the top. So I need to get that recessed. Now I'll tell you what, I got a wimpy little cheap vise here, and I had all I could do to push that bushing in, so a regular press might be better. Or if you have a larger, like a Wilton vise that's got a little more oomph to it. But that's all that thing could handle, to press that bushing in. So I'm going to put it back in the vise, and I'm going to put this socket on top so I can get that little bit of recess. And then now when we do the bottom one, we got to make sure we line that hole up in the bushing with that greaser. So we'll be doing that next. Got the first one all the way in, and that fits on there nice. And that gives me a little room to stake it. So the next step would be to do the other side and make sure I get that grease hole lined up. I have the other bushing in, which would be the top one, and I have the grease hole lined up. You can see daylight through it. About the right recess for the top plug. And now comes the scary part. You got to ream it for that pin to fit in there. And we'll take a look at that. I was very fortunate to find a adjustable reamer. I did find this one. It goes from 27/32 to 15/16, and it's adjustable. So as you bring these blades down, it gets smaller. And so I'm going to start out pretty tight and measure it, and then run that through there. Now, in a perfect world, you'd have a reamer that would go through both bushings at the same time so they're perfectly straight and aligned. Unfortunately, this is all I have, so hopefully it's going to work. But you know, if you had one that would go through both bushings at the same time, would be the ideal situation. But I'm going to give this thing a whirl. The pin diameter is 860 thousandths. And I've got my reamer set about 849, 850 for my first pass through the bushings, just to make sure I'm on the right track. The last thing you want to do is get too big. I am getting super close. I've adjusted this twice. I'm somewhere around 8.855 right now on this, and this is 860, and I just can't quite get it started. It just starts to wiggle a little bit, so I'm right there. I'm pretty darn close, so I got to be very careful now on bumping this thing up so I don't go over. Okay, I did my final ream, and the fit is perfect, but one of the things I was afraid of that was going to happen did happen, but it fits perfect. It's got the right clearance here, and it's got the right clearance. If I can get, it's kind of an angle there, right clearance. But what happens is the top and the bottom are not perfectly lined up. They're a little tiny bit off. I take it my little plastic mallet and I can tap it in there without a problem. So that's a little disappointing. If you had a reamer the full length, ideally that's what you need to get those lined up absolutely perfect, but it's not real bad. I'd be able to tap it and I can still turn it, so I think that's going to be fine. I don't want to go any bigger, obviously, because it's perfect right now. So we'll go on from there. Well, it's time to try the spindle fit. I got the spindle here. Okay, so that's kind of in place. And I can get my steering arm in there after this is on. I do have some shims. My shims are on the top, so I'm assuming that's where they're supposed to go. If I can get them both in there, I may not be able to. I tried 2 or 3 times to get the second shim in, and it just physically won't go in there. And it's tight with the one. You gotta have a little clearance, I guess. So now I'm going to try to get this pin in here. A little bit of alignment problem with the top and lower bushing. Not bad though. I mean, it's a little snug when you get right down to it. But you know what? It won't take long and it won't be snug. And I got that lined up. Let's see if I can turn that a little bit. Okay. Okay, I just stuck the wedge in here, back here, just a little bit. And I've got a little bit of resistance on this steering knuckle. And I think that's pretty darn nice. That won't take long and that'll come out of that before you know it. And it's no movement up and down, and that was my goal. No movement. What do you want? Okay. Alright, here's that little wedge. It's kind of tapered on one side. And now the flat on the pin is going to be this way, so it's going to go like that. I'm not going to drive it home yet because I want to put my caps on and check my grease zerks and make sure everything's taking grease before I drive that thing home. Put a little dab of number 2 Permatex around the edge of the expansion plug, and they had it staked. The first thing I'm going to do is hit it in the center, which will spread that out, and hopefully I can do that without making a big mess here. Okay, I don't know. I think that did it. And then I'm going to go around the edges like they did and stake that slightly so that doesn't come out. Of course, this is the easy one. The bottom one's going to be a pain in the butt. Got a chisel here, and that kind of looks like what they used before to spread that out. So I'm going to try it, see what it does here. Yeah, it looks like it's working. Yeah. My dad always used a center punch. Just kind of went around stuff. But this does seem to work, so I think that's going to do it. Now I get to do the bottom one. I'm ready to drive in that wedge, and the one thing that I'd like to do is to blue Loctite it. Now I know they didn't have blue Loctite back when they built these, but one thing Loctite does, it'll hold it in place. Blue Loctite is removable. It's not going to put it in there so you can't get it back out. It's also going to seal it to keep rust out. So it's not going to rust in there so that it's impossible to get out. So I want the wedge facing the pin. Get it in there. Let me get it started. Let me get the bad boy on there. There we go. I do not believe that that will be coming out. On its own anyway. And another thing, you do not want to heat front end parts. So that's why you don't use a red or a green Loctite on this. You just use a little bit of blue and it will come back out. Or don't put any in there, but that's what I do. So there we go. I got both the caps on. She's nice and snug. It does take grease, so that's cool.